For all the little lost sheep and the people who give them a place to belong.
Well, you're dead. The kid gapes at me across the table, really showing off his sparkly orthodontic hardware. No, I'm not. You took on a Kraken by yourself. You're fucking dead, man. Stan kicks me in the shin. Can you cut him a break? He's a freshman. He's been playing for almost a year now. Hey, freshman. Gareth, mumbles Gareth, from somewhere beneath his plume of puffy, wavy hair. How many hit points you got? He mutters something I can't make out, but I'm pretty sure it rhymes with Nero. That's what I thought. So let's walk you through the next part. I lean forward, one hand on either side of my DM screen. It's the final swipe of the monster's tentacle that does you in. Agony crashes through you, overwhelming your willpower, and your lungs pay the price. Ronnie throws an eraser at my head. Jesus Christ, Eddie, she says, but I can hear the laughter in her voice. On instinct, you try to draw a breath. But you're 24 feet beneath the surface of the Solnar Ocean, and the rest of your party is all the way back on shore, which means there's no one to save you as the sea fills your throat. That's sick, says Dougie, watching me with wide, awestruck eyes. And there is no one to watch as your body twitches one final time and sinks, lifeless, into the black depths of the unknown. So ends the tale of Ilian the Unvanquished, half-elf paladin and champion of the Lost Lands. Applause springs up around the table, a respectable smattering from my players. Ronnie and Dougie are the most enthusiastic, Dougie even surging to his feet in a much-appreciated display of approval. Gareth, in contrast, sinks low in chair, poking at his D20 with a dejected finger. This is bullshit, he says. What is up your ass, Gareth? Dougie demands. You got a crazy Munson death monologue. That's like worth its weight in gold. Gareth's skinny shoulders are up around his ears, but he still turns an impressive glare on Dougie. Am I supposed to happy? He killed me. You're not special. He's trying to kill all of us. Okay. I hold up both hands, trying to fend off whatever explosion is brewing here. As your humble dungeon master, would you gentlemen allow me the pleasure of your shutting the hell up? They shut the hell up, which gives me just enough time to meet each of my players' eyes in turn, while I scramble around figuring out what the hell I'm gonna do next. Hellfire membership isn't exactly bursting at the seams. Counting myself, there's only 6 of us. Ronnie and I have both been members since we walked in the door together the first week of 9th grade. And even though Dougie had resisted joining Nerd Club, a bare month of listening to us recite inside jokes from our Hellfire sessions had him almost begging for a seat at the table. Stan, a junior, had come along the following year. Through his attendance is hit or miss. His family's got it in their brains that D&D comes straight from Satan himself, and that even touching dice with more than 6 sides would be enough to send their precious baby boy straight into the flames of eternal damnation. Stan tries his best to get around this by spinning stories about weekly algebra tutoring, and by giving Ronnie all his Hellfire shit to keep at her place so his snooping mom can't find it. But even with all this cloak and danger maneuvering, Stan winds up missing 1 game out of 3. Sophomore Jeff has been part of Hellfire for 2 years now, but it feels like longer. He'd been playing with his older brothers before he started at Hawkins High, and he knows almost as much about the game as I do, which is why he'd been welcome addition to Corroded Coffins, rounding out the sound in a way that Ronnie, Dougie, and I hadn't been able to on our own. And then there's little freshman Gareth, who's glaring at the laminated chart of US presidents on the wall, like he wants to start using it for target practice. He better not. We can't afford to land on the shit list of another teacher, not when so many of them already refuse to share space with that satanic cult. As it stands, every Monday, I start the process of wheeling and dealing with the small handful of teachers with the smallest slice of sympathy to our cause, bargaining for the right role, a couple of dice in their classrooms. Once the final bell rings at 2:50 on Wednesday afternoon. And every Monday, as I go through the motions of asking about Mrs. Deb's upcoming retirement and cleaning chalkboards in Mr. Vick's lab, I ask myself the same question. Why am I doing this? I've never been able to answer it, but I'm still here, week after week. Isn't that the definition of insanity? Maybe you should be happy, freshman, I say. You learned a valuable lesson today. I can feel Ronnie watching me. She's twirling a pencil between her fingers so fast that it blurs. I don't look over at her. Gareth shorts. How valuable can it be if I won't be around to use it? Some of Gareth's angst slams into focus, but it's not something I can deal with here, in front of all these watching eyes. Well, boys and girls, I say, straightening up. I think that just about wraps up our session here today. There's a chorus of groans, mostly from Stan and Doogie. We'll regroup next week as our surviving adventurers journey deep into the labyrinth of Ralishaz the Mad. Gareth is packed almost as soon as I finish speaking, throwing all his shit into his backpack as fast as he can. He shoves his chair back with an ungodly squeal of aluminum legs on the linoleum and stomps to the door, throwing it open with a crash that rattles the wall. Dougie sucks his teeth, watching the door swing shut behind Gareth. This kid sucks. Shut up, Dougie, Ronnie comments calmly. She raises an eyebrow at me in silent question. But I'm already on my feet and sidling around the table. Same time. I lecture the room over my shoulder as I stalk out the door. If you're late, you get the alien treatment. Comprende? A chorus of surreys and whatevers sweeps me into the hallway. Gareth is already a sea of lockers away and moving fast. Hey, freshman! For a second, I think the kid isn't going to stop. But then he does, turning to face me with an eye roll and a sigh. What? You got somewhere to be? My mom's picking me up in like -2 minutes, so yeah. He glowers up at me, adjusting his backpack on his shoulder. As he does, the hem of his shirt catch sight of something purple and painful spreading across his side. You already kicked me out of your club. What else do you want from me? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Who said anything about kicking you out? You did. When you killed me. So? I ask. So. Gareth is starting to look more uncertain now, shifting from foot to foot. So Ilian's gone? So I'm gone. So you make a new character. Gareth blinks at me, like he honestly never considered that possibility before. I do? You think I'm gonna let someone crazy enough to tangle with a kraken walk away from this party? No way. I lean in closer, conspiratorial. Those other assholes won't last 1 millisecond in Ralishaz's labyrinth without your guts. Is it gonna be bad? It's gonna be the worst, I say, and laugh at Gareth's aluminum grin. We just gotta get you set up with another character. You free tomorrow after school? I have to ask my mom, Gareth says, but the force of his nodding makes it clear that mom's approval or not, he'll be there. There's a distant honk of a car horn from the direction of the school parking lot. Someone's losing their patience. Shit, Gareth says. I gotta... Absolutely, dude. The kid takes a few running steps down the hall and then stops, like he can't help himself. "You're sure, right?" He falters. "I can come back? As long as you want to be in Hellfire, you can be in Hellfire." He nods, gaze turned inside, like he's making himself memorize those words. "Okay," he says, and then he's scurrying towards the school's front entrance. I watch after him until he's out of sight. Wow, and I left my Kleenex at home. Ronnie is behind me, arms wrapped around an overstuffed trapper keeper. She pretends to dab her eyes as I walk over and let out a laughing yell as I shoulder check her off balance. "Careful." She shoves me back. Stan's gonna be such a dick if I drop this thing. "You got something to say, Ecker?" The only thing I would even dream of saying is, "Can I get a ride?" I roll in my eyes. "This is the last time. Last time," Ronnie promises, following me towards the parking lot. It's not the last time, and we both know it. But Ronnie's and my little script is the foundation of our friendship. She bums tiny favor off. I get to pretend like I'm responsible. We both benefit. It's been that eat since I semi-inherited Dad's van at the beginning of junior year. It's been that way since the day we first met. "What are you doing?" she'd asked. Even at 8, she'd been taller than I was, looking over my shoulder in her beaten-in overalls like a ghost of a tiny farmer. What I'd been doing was feeling sorry for myself. A call from an old drinking buddy had my dad running out the door with a couple half-finished promises about back before you know it. And you know how to work the stove, right? I'd spent the night watching the drive for him, waiting until I'd fallen asleep where I sat, slumped against the window. It had been the first time he'd fallen off the face of the planet. First, in a long string of next times. But I hadn't realized that then. Instead, I just scraped around the empty house for 2 days, living off stale peanut butter sandwiches and flat pop, until my Uncle Wayne had realized what was up and came to get me, swooping me back to life with him at his trailer till Al gets his heat out of his ass and turns up. I'd hated it at the trailer park, mostly because it meant that Dad wouldn't know where to find me when he did come back. But Wayne would not believe me when I stubbornly insisted that a third grader was more than capable of taking care of himself. And so, I was stuck in the dusty old lot with nothing to do except dig holes in the nearby woods. And then, this other kid had turned up. Ronnie, it turned out, had just moved into the trailer park too. She was living with her granny because her dad was dead and her mom had gotten sick and started talking to the walls. She had brown hair, brown eyes, and people thought we were siblings when they saw us together. And when I told her I was digging a hole to China, she asked if she could help me out because I found out this was a lie and that she'd passed up watching M.A.'s H with Granny Ecker in order to hang out with me. But in the moment, I was too busy having a friend for the first time in a billion years to suspect anything. And even when my dad had rolled back into Hawkins, telling stories about some asshole in Kentucky who owed him money, and taking me back to the house, Ronnie and I stayed close. Everyone else at Hellfire has moms picking them up after school and framed family photos hanging over their fireplaces. It helps to have someone around who love wasn't stamped from a picture-perfect suburban cookie cutter. "Home?" I ask as I start the van. These days, Ronnie's tall enough that her head nearly scrapes the roof, and the brim of her corduroy ball cap fills in those last few centimeters for her. She nods, showing the trapper keeper in the foot. "Well, Granny wants me around for dinner. But you're still coming tonight, right?" The punch she lands on my arm is hard enough to bruise. You worry too much. We keep bickering as the van chugs down the road towards the outskirts of Hawkins. It's comfortable, a routine back and forth we've done a million times. Once, when we were 13, I'd thought for a second that this meant we were maybe dating. Having a friend who knew me so well had felt like it had to be special in that way. After sitting on this revelation for a sweaty few weeks, I decided that the only option was to make a move, to plant one on Ronnie, to make it official. I hadn't been prepared for the way she'd helped and screamed away from me as I'd leaned in. "What the hell is wrong with you, Munson?" She'd squawked, and all I'd been able to do was stammer and flush and run away like a coward. But a few days later, once everything had calmed down, and we'd both felt a little less like the world was ending, Ronnie had explained to me that it wasn't just me she didn't like that way. She didn't think she'd ever have a crush on anybody. And was that okay with me? I'd considered it for a moment. Does that mean we can still be friends? She'd punched my arm in the same place she always did. Don't be an idiot. Now I just groan as Ronnie plants her feet up on my dashboard. Are you serious? I don't want to step on Stan's thingy. And it's not my fault your van is too small. My van is not the problem. You've just got freakish legs. Let me tell you a secret about these freakish legs, Ronnie says. She still hasn't put her feet down, and I know a losing battle when I see one, so I don't say anything. In 4 months, they are going to be walking into their new apartment in New York City. I almost slammed the brakes. No. Yep. You got the scholarship. Ronnie grins. NYU class of '88, baby. Full ride. Now I do slam on the brakes, fishtailing the car to the side of the road. Holy shit. Holy shit. When? Last night. Last night? Why didn't you tell me earlier? I'm telling you now. I know why she didn't tell me earlier. Hey, you know I'm happy for you, right? Ronnie just shrugs. I know, she says, but I'm not buying it. Because Ronnie and I are super similar, right? Same broken homes, same secondhand clothes, same haircut, same trailer park. But there is one major difference between us. There always has been. Veronica Ecker is going places. She's headed to college. She's heading to law school. She's getting the hell out of Indiana. Eddie Munson, he's gonna die in this stupid town. It's not her fault. Obviously, it's not Ronnie's fault. But she's always had a knack for school, learning all that bullshit. I've never really seen the point of it. To me, Hawkins High is just the place where I waste 8 hours a day before, if I'm charming. Enough about Mrs. Deb's grand baby. Escaping into a pad of graph paper, 20-sided dice for a few hours. Ronnie's got straight A's and a deep bench of teachers lining up to write her glowing recommendations. And I've got the last name, Munson. It would be generous to call the sound from the driver's window a tap. It's more of a hammering, loud enough that I'm briefly worried for the glass. Ronnie and I both whip around in our seats to look. My heart sinks. I've been so wrapped up in Ronnie's news and my own bullshit reaction to it that I hadn't noticed the police car pulling up behind me. Now there's a cop standing outside, giving me a shit-eating grin as he gestures for me to roll down my window. Again? Ronnie mutters. Always? I mutter back, cranking the window down. Officer Moore, how can I help you on this fine spring afternoon? Moore's blonde buzz, cut and square jaw give him some Superman-level all-American looks, but no amount of ironing his uniform and polishing his shoes can combat his growing mid-40s beer gut. He's been a shining star of the Hawkins police force since before I was born, a town hero. Or so I've been told. I can't count the number of times he's hassled me, and it's gotten only worse since I turned 18. If I didn't know any better, I'd say he was gunning for me. He shakes his head, oozing fake disappointment. I thought that was you, Munson. How many teams do we have to have this conversation? That's a question you'll have to ask yourself, officer. You're the one who's always filling up my dance card. That was some erratic driving? More tuts? Started drinking a little early today? Nope. We just came from school, Ronnie supplies. She's trying to help me out, but I can tell her right now it's not going to work. If I search the car, am I going to find any illicit substances? You never do. Moore's expression darkens. He opens his mouth, probably to order me to unlock the back, and I brace myself to loosen Hauer as Moore tears, part the van, like he always does. But the radio back, in his squad car, gives a crackle. Officer Moore, we got a 10-16, over on Fleming Neon. Moore gives a huff of exasperation. If this traffic stop had any real merit, he'd tell dispatch that he was occupied. But since it doesn't, I've got my eye on you, he says. Promise? I bat my eyelashes at him. And don't wince. When Ronnie elbows me in the side, he snorts. Get your laughs now. Not even your dad could joke in a jail cell. And that's where all you Munsons wind up, sooner or later. We're quite as Moore ambles back to his car. He kicks on the lights and speeds past us, tearing down the road. I watch him go and try to relax my white-knuckled grip on the steering wheel. Eddie? Ronnie starts. But I can't hear it right now. Not from someone who got their golden ticket, someone the world thinks is worth investing in. Put your feet down, I say. She puts her feet down without argument. You don't want to be late for dinner. And I hammer the gas. If I'm going nowhere, at least I'll get there as fast as I can.